Welcome to the Retrieving Catholicity podcast, where we think about life and ministry in light of the whole truth with the whole church for the whole world.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the pod. I'm so glad you found us here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Maybe you've recently seen an episode on 5 benefits of our weekly observance of the Lord's Supper. I've had some good conversations coming out of that. I hope that wherever you land on that, how often you think the church should observe the Lord's Supper, what it like specifically, how would you articulate what's going on there? Wherever you might fall in that, I hope that at least that episode was helpful in getting you thinking about what role that ordinance or sacrament should play in your local church gatherings. I'm going to do another 5 benefits video, but this video is going to be on, or podcast, a video podcast, either which way, right? Some of you are listening, many of you are listening, some of you are watching. Welcome to all of you. 5 benefits of congregational singing. Church, we sing a lot at church, and when you think about it, we sing probably more at church than we do in other aspects of life. Singing has a profound ability to bring us together. Singing is a powerful thing. I think about a couple of things, right? One of the first times you see a man cry is when the Mountaineers win and you sing Country Roads after the win. Yeah, you always have to stick around. I do hate as one who has to drive, 2.5 hours home after every WVU football and basketball game. When we do win, I try to stay for the singing of Country Roads. But man, you're doing the calculus in your head of like, am I going to beat this traffic or am I going to be festive? And so, let's say if it's a basketball game and we're playing, let's just name a random out of like Canisius or something like that, then I'm going to leave. I'm probably not going to sing. So I do apologize to John Denver and all that may be offended. But after the backyard brawl, when we came back in overtime to beat the Pittsburgh Panthers, I'm staying, I'm singing, I've got nowhere to be. I don't care if it takes me 6 hours to get out of Morgantown. I'm going to stand there and sing. But there's something about singing Country Roads with 60,000 of your closest friends that is a darn near spiritual experience. Had another really cool experience. I'm wearing my Arsenal jersey today. The Arsenal soccer club, football club, whatever you want to call them, in London, England, is my favorite in the Premier League. I've been following them since 2018. They're having an unbelievable year. They're in the running for all kinds of trophies. And so we were on our mission trip to Bristol. In our day in London, the Arsenal played that day. And I was a member, and so I entered the ballots, did not get a ticket. It's a real complicated process. And then I got one through the ticket exchange, and I got to go to the game. So it was unbelievable. And they have this really cool moment where the players are all on the pitch. They're getting ready to start the match, and they play this chorus of a song called North London Forever, and everyone holds their scarves up, and you sing the song North London Forever. And it was like watching that happen and being a part of that was a surreal experience. And so singing has a universal appeal. You go to concerts, you sing. Both of my examples were sports. Most of you are like, well, you ever heard of a concert? You actually go and listen to people sing and sing loud. But singing is this powerful thing, period, in the human experience. And singing happens in churches. And so I want to make a fundamental point that singing happens in church because it's commanded. We look, when you sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. So singing has been a part of the church's liturgy. It has now fallen out of favor at different times, and different people have brought it back. Benjamin Keach was a Baptist who was significant. If you're a Baptist and you sing, one of the reasons it might be a guy like Benjamin Keach, some of you maybe have never even heard of. But all that to say, across the tradition, singing has played some sort of a role, whether it's psalm singing, hymn singing, modern worship music, whatever. And so I do want to make a preliminary thought that singing happens in churches because it is assumed in the Bible. It's commanded in the Bible. When you gather, when you sing, do these things. So there's a very simple point that needs to be made before we talk about the benefits of congregational singing. All the benefits of congregational singing are downstream of sort of the benefits of obeying the Bible's teaching on this particular topic. And so it's commanded by Scripture, and so we sing, and so it's worth doing, right? But I want to spend a few minutes just thinking about some very practical benefits of congregational singing in the life of a local church. The first one, if you're new around here, this might be helpful, but if you're not new around here, you've heard this before about the Lord's Supper. The first thing I want to say about congregational singing is that it involves everyone. It involves, the goal is that all the people in the room would sing. We might go about achieving that goal differently, but the goal should be in Christian worship, whatever the church, is that everyone in the room is singing praises to God. So congregational singing is participatory. It reminds us that worship is not a product. Worship is not something we consume, but worship more fundamentally is the work of the people. I talked about this in the Lord's Supper. I'm talking about this again now when we talk about congregational singing, that one of the great benefits of emphasizing congregational singing is that it means that everyone who comes is not just watching people singing on stage, but they are themselves to watch. The second thing I want to talk about congregational singing is that it is a little bit distinct from just watching, like just music. So in other words, I'm not just talking about the benefit of music in worship broadly. I'm talking about the benefit of congregational singing in worship. That's a distinction maybe with a difference. And so I fear sometimes in church life for a lot of the resources we get, whether it's the songs we sing or the teaching we receive, they come from bigger churches. And it's not bad. I don't have a problem with big churches, small churches, because if you're in a small church and it grows, you're going to leave when it what's the number that you're going to leave? You know, like, are you going to leave when it's 150, 200, 300, 500, 1,000? And so I think sometimes we can get too stuck on, the benefits of big churches and small churches, and it can be unhelpful. Some people can even assume that, big is bad, or people can assume that small is bad. It's church size dynamics are a lot more complex and complicated and less straightforward than that. I think you can be healthy maybe up to a certain size, but large churches can certainly be healthy. And so that's, I guess, somewhat of a caveat before I say this. A lot of the resources we have about like how to do church is how to pull off a not terrible concert. And it's almost like it comes down from megachurches, and the implication is that we should be like miniature megachurches. And so a mini megachurch is sort of doing the same things of the production value of a 5,000, 10,000 person church with 50 people, 75 people, 100 people. And what I want to make the case is that like it doesn't need to translate in that way. That the goal isn't to pull off an acceptable concert. The goal is to get the people of God to sing. So when congregational singing is a part of our language, when the expectation of congregational singing sort of is present on a Sunday morning, it's present from the people on the stage, pastorally is present, then it switches from we want to be like a miniature version of a megachurch, and it becomes like, let's just be faithful to sing. And so anyone can do it. Any style can do it. It's sort of like if you have 30 people, you can sing. If you have 10 people, you can sing. If you have 30,000 people, you can sing. Like the goal is to get the people of God singing together. And so because that's the goal, it's attainable. More on that on a separate point. A third benefit of congregational singing is that it transcends the contemporary and traditional divide. Now, this one is maybe the most esoteric, the least immediately helpful for all of us. But for some pastors, this is still helpful. I think for the most part, like the contemporary traditional worship war days are long gone. They're over. We're in something new. But the danger is we're always sort of behind. So the common parlance, the common sort of discourse often lags behind reality in some way. So I think like to speak of only like, well, is this a traditional or a contemporary church? Really makes a binary or a dichotomy where the reality of the many churches who are gathering and what their worship services are like and how they're shaped and what they're aimed to be like that simple binary does not do it justice. But one of the things I like to do is think theologically about the nature of worship. And when we think theologically about the nature of worship, one of the things that does is it transcends some of these cultural debates that we like to have, or some of these more stylistic debates that we like to have. Like, for example, I always joke like the contemporary and the traditional church often have more in common than they think they do, because they're both fixating on the style of music, when in reality, like, they're doing the same thing with the music, right? They're both just kind of wanting it to be the thing that they like, or the thing that they think is going to reach the people in their community. Music becomes just this tool for evangelism or for self-expression. And I think music is for more than just evangelism or self-expression. We did an episode last season on the worship war, going beyond the worship wars. And I think congregational singing is one of those things that sort of transcends the worship wars of a previous generation and the sort of contemporary traditional divide that now exists. So it involves everyone. Anyone can do it, and it transcends this contemporary traditional divide. So in other words, if I am like, let's just say I'm a Johnny Church shopper and I'm looking for a church, I might go to something and might be like, I don't love like the type of music they're playing. But if everyone is singing, I'm going to be impacted by that. I'm going to be struck by that. I'm going to notice that, right? I don't think we should gear our services to Johnny Church shopper, but I think there is I've talked about that ad nauseum, right? But I do think there is a benefit in saying like, hey, we can't pull off a good concert. And I think fewer people can than think so. But So why try? Why run the race if I can't complete it? And I think a lot of people in worship are doing that. They're stuck doing things that they think they need to do, when in reality, you would be so much better off if you figured out who among us can help get people singing together, and what is singable, and what can we do. And so that is going to vary from church to church, depending on the people that God's called there, the type of music they can play. And it takes a degree of humility to figure out together what that's going to look like. We have to all sort of put our preferences aside and say, who has God brought? How has God gifted us? And how can we use these people, and how can we use these gifts to get everyone singing together in worship? Our songs are so important. They shape us, they mold us, they reveal our theology, they shape our theology. They're so important. And so I think when we transcend this, like, well, do we need to be like this kind of church or that kind of church? We just need to be a singing church. Right? We need to be a people who glory in the grace of God and who sing that together. And so when congregational singing becomes the focus, what kind of concert I can expect for 15 to 20 minutes before a guy talks for 30 minutes, that's not even the conversation that we're having. And I worry that sometimes when we are like trying to help a smaller church, or we're trying to plant a church, or we're trying to revitalize a church or whatever, like we are coming in saying like, let's get this concert up. When in reality, we just need to get the people singing. And so how can we do that? That might look different for different people, but that's okay. That's part of the Catholicity of the church, I suppose. A fourth benefit of congregational singing, so let's just review briefly. It involves everyone. It reminds us that worship is participatory. Everyone in the room should be singing, right? Second, anyone can do it. Any church can do it. Any person can do it. You don't have to be on this track to be a miniature megachurch to pull it off. Third, it transcends this contemporary divide. It gives us theological focus, and it reminds us of the biblical reason for singing. If we're singing songs to God, to each other, and to ourselves, then the act of singing is more important than the style of music that is being played. And a fourth thing is related to the rest. All these are interconnected, obviously, but it's cheaper. It's cheap. It costs $0 for us all to lift our voices together. I want to make the case that the more money you spend might make it more difficult to get the people of God singing. Listen, I don't have, like, we serve, I know John Piper had a tweet or a post or something. People love to attack the old feller. I'm thankful for him. I feel like he's been somewhat steady his whole ministry, and that's a goal for a young pastor like myself. But he said something about like coffee and worship, and everyone got all mad, right? Listen, we have coffee that we serve people in the back. I don't necessarily love it, but I don't care. Like I have and I can get in trouble with folks for this, but I'm an open book on the podcast, right? There are battles to fight and battles to not fight. We already at Resurrection are so like theologically motivated about things that I want to pick and choose battles. And so I want to remain accessible to people while also fostering sort of a really, really deep theology of worship, and a really accessible theology of worship and deep theology of worship. So in other words, if we just have like a big coffee station, everyone gets their coffee and they go into this little concert thing and they watch this concert, like the goal, the desired posture of the people in the room isn't like hold the coffee, watch the band. But I also push back a little bit on some of the like deep presence Pentecostal things. Say it's also not necessarily people like laying down or raising their arms and going crazy. I don't care. Worship, because you got two sort of problems that both of those can fall into. Now, there's nothing sinful about holding your coffee and singing. I occasionally do it myself. There's nothing sinful by any stretch about like throwing your arms up. I do it myself. The point is that there are a couple of dangers that whichever approach you might be more drawn to can lead you to. And I always say this at Resurrection when I'm preaching. I'm preaching to the people in the room. This is a podcast, so this is different. It goes out to a broader audience. But all counsel is contextualized. So usually like what I need to hear is something I don't want to hear, okay? The people I hate, the politicians I hate, it's just red meat for me to like hear more things about what I hate about them. But I need to sort of stay sober-minded with the things that I'm tempted to believe that are untrue, that about the things that I like, right? And so when I offer like a friendly critique like that, it's with myself included, and it's not to say like either of these are on a trajectory to be terrible things. No, praise God for the people who hold their coffee, and praise God for the people who are really, really physically into it, right? But the danger on the coffee side is sort of apathy, complacence, and like performative. You're watching the performance and just kind of like, oh, this is good, or this is bad, or this is okay, or why are they singing, or why is this what, you know, just kind of like whatever. The danger on this side is that it's all just self-expressive and emotive, and it's all my own experience of these things. And so like if one side is sort of taking this in, the other side is just going as deep as they can, and they feel they are like letting they're becoming sort of so internally focused that they forget they're in a room full of people. Not that they should be ashamed of the way they're acting, but like the other people are also part of the point. So one of the reasons, like, yeah, there's a moment to close your eyes in worship. That's great. To think about you and Jesus, I think that's a good thing. But like, that's not the only movement, because it's not just you and Jesus. It's the whole church. And so one of the reasons we don't turn all the lights off, one of the reasons we keep the lights where we can see each other. Well, our theater's dark, but you can kind of see each other still. It's because it reminds us like we're singing as the church, right? And so as you see, we spend all kinds of money to create a perfect environment. And if that perfect environment is just making it you and Jesus, we're actually harming the health of the church by spending so much money to create this environment. Because the goal is not that people would feel like it's just them and Jesus. And the goal is not that people would feel like it's a concert they can come and be casual at. We are worshiping together the living God as we lift our voices as the gathered people of God to him in praise and worship. That's what's happening. We're singing to God. We're singing for God. We're singing to each other. We're singing for each other, and we're singing for ourselves. So yeah, there are moments where, God, I'm so thankful for your grace and that you loved me enough to die for me at Calvary and rising for my sins. And then you died for our sins. And we're singing this together and joyously. We're not fixating on ourselves. We're lifting hands. We're not lifting hands. However you are to engage with the work. But what I want you to see is the most consequential things are not the things to spend a whole lot of money. Like, you don't need $100,000 soundboard and a $500,000 light rig to sing with each other. In fact, I'm arguing that you can use those things in such a way that the singing becomes inaccessible. The message being sent by the atmosphere is counter to what's supposed to be happening when the people of God sing. So a benefit of congregational singing being the focus of the musical portion of worship is that it's cheaper. And by being cheaper, it might actually even be better. It might serve your church better. The final reason, the final benefit of focusing on congregational singing, using that language when we talk about what happens when the people of God gather around with music, is that it's encouraging. It's encouraging. I've said this multiple times throughout the pod, so I'm going to go ahead and explain it. Like, we teach at Resurrection that we sing to and for God, we sing to and for each other, and we sing to and for ourselves. So one of the things happening when we worship via song is that we are singing to each other. Country Roads After a Win would not be fun if we weren't singing it together. Singing North London together before an Arsenal match would not be fun if you couldn't hear anybody else. It's in hearing the other voices that we are encouraged. It's in hearing the other people in the room. Coming out of COVID, so for those of you who don't know, we own a theater in downtown Charleston, built in like 1912. And there's about 400 seats on the main floor. We have about 124, 125 people on a normal Sunday. And so if back during COVID, we were smaller than that, and it was also obviously less people. So the benefit of like when we started to regather in person is that we had a really big building people could spread out in. The challenge was, how are we coming back together after that, right? When there's maybe physical concerns and sort of already like a spiritual apathy that can weigh in, all of these things make it difficult, not just the obvious ones. And so one of the things we did was we kind of forced everyone forward. And you could be cynical about that, thinking, well, they just want like the vibe of it to be better. Well, we don't necessarily want the vibe to be better, though the vibe, I think, is something to be aware of. The vibe improves when presence improves, and when you can't hear anyone singing, and it's like you are in your own little world. Like, it was a brutal atmosphere. And so we thought, well, we got to humbly and graciously get people closer, because you can't hear each other singing. And that was helpful for us, is to get people closer so we can sing, because we need to be able to hear each other. I realized how much we were missing and how much we were lacking. It wasn't just a vibe of the service. In part, it was that, but that vibe was related to the fact that this really crucial thing wasn't happening, really. It was happening. There were people on the stage and we were singing, but it wasn't particularly nourishing. And so I just want to say, like, as I finish up this episode, is that you should hear other people singing, both individually and like corporately. And that's a goal. The physical volume of the congregation is an indicator of the spiritual health of the church. It's not the only indicator. It's not the tell-all. It's not even maybe in the top 5 most important, but maybe it is. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. But it is an indicator of who is participating, who is engaging, and how seriously they're taking that act. And so when we gather for worship, it's not because we like music. I think one of the reasons I'm able to have these thoughts is because I'm not a music guy. I don't really I listen to music occasionally. I don't listen to it often. I should listen to it more because I've found that it's better for my brain than just a constant deluge of Reds, Arsenal, Carolina Panthers, Columbus Crew, Cincinnati Reds, OVU, like all these teams I like. And I got all podcasts for each of them, at least one, right? This constant deluge of sports information on top of theology stuff, on top of news, on like sometimes it's better just to like not do any of that and just listen to some music, right? So I'm not saying I'm not a music guy as if I'm proud of it. I'm actually not proud of it. I wish I were more of a music guy. But what it has helped me do in my ministry is not be just obsessed with what the music's like. And because we haven't had sort of these transcendent things that some church plants aim for, it has forced me to say, what role is music going to play in our church's life? And I have taken a long road to saying, congregational singing is God's grace hidden in plain sight. I grew up in churches fighting over how we're going to do music. And like the point was just there the whole time. And so I'm not advocating for a particular style. I'm not even advocating for particular song selections, though I think these are related to what's singable and what's not singable. I think you can be in a charismatic church with 15 people up there and cultivate a culture where everyone in the room is singing. I think that's totally, totally great. And I appreciate being in those spaces. It can be more like the Gettys, where it's kind of like a hybrid-y type of thing, where you've got some modern instrumentation, you've got more hymnotic lyrics, you've got more these sorts of things. It can be just a literal hymnal. Like congregational singing is adaptable and can be done in a variety of things. And so that is itself part of the Catholicity of the church, that these things manifest themselves in different ways. But I think in an ideal world, whatever denomination, whatever style of church I might be in, I can appreciate it most when the saints of God are singing to the glory of God from the Word of God, true things together. I might not love every song the same. I might think some lyrics are more helpful than others. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to sing with the people of God. And I want to encourage you, because I'm sure there's maybe a diverse group of people listening in different churches. If you're a church leader, when you talk about worship, make sure you also use some language of congregational singing, just to help people see like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We're not trying to have the best possible concert. We're trying to get the people of God to sing to God together, sing to each other together, sing to themselves together, right? And I think that little perspective shift can be helpful, no matter what your own style of worship. So I think congregational singing is commanded by God for our good, and I think it has a lot of benefits. It involves everyone. Any church can do it. It transcends contemporary traditional divides. It's cheaper, and it's encouraging. It reminds us who we belong to. It reminds us who we are, our connectedness to each other, and it fills our hearts as we sing together. So I hope that at least you have some maybe fresh thoughts on the importance of congregational singing as you've considered the benefits of congregational singing in your local church. If you're a member of a church, here's my challenge for you, and a leader as well. But if you're just like a member or attender, show up Sunday and sing. I don't care if you can sing very well. Show up Sunday and sing heartily to the Lord, to yourself, and to the people around you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, pass along. I hope this serves the church well. See ya.